Everyone. My name is Tiffany Go. I'm the president of the Women of Seattle University Affinity Group. I'm so excited for our Connection Cafe today for women running for office. We have an incredible panel joining us today. And I would actually like to kick off our event this evening with a land acknowledgement. So I'm just going to go ahead and read this. And so a land acknowledgement. As we begin our gathering, we respectfully acknowledge that Seattle University is located on occupied Coast Salish land and on the homelands of the Duwamish people. We pay respect to Coast Salish elders, past and present, and extend that respect to their descendants and to all Indigenous people. To acknowledge this land is to recognize its longer history and our place in that history. It is to recognize these lands and waters and their significance for the peoples who've lived and continue to live in this region, whose practices and spiritualities were and are tied to the land and the water, and whose lives continue to enrich and develop in relationship to the land, waters, and other inhabitants today. And so I also wanted to talk a little bit about who we are for the Women of Seattle University. The Women of SU, we are a dedicated group. Any alumna who graduated from Seattle University is part of this large group. And we are here connecting women in the spirit of the Jesuit tradition by promoting leadership and empowerment, encouraging service and philanthropy, and providing opportunities for personal and professional growth. And I also wanted to talk about an upcoming event coming up next week on February 25th, and that's Seattle U Gives 2021. We have a special Women of SU Endowed Scholarship Challenge, where if we receive 20 donated gifts of any amount on SU Gives Day, we will unlock a $2,500 gift that will go towards our endowed scholarship. Our scholarship is earmarked for underrepresented students who are pursuing a degree in STEM at Seattle U, or either a junior or a senior. So we are really excited to host this challenge and really appreciate the generosity of one of our past presidents who has given us a gift of $2,500. So I would invite all of you here to consider making a gift for Seattle U Gives on the 25th, that's next week. And definitely would love to encourage for folks to make a donated gift if you can for our scholarship. And at this time, I would like to invite Tammy Laster. She's our education chair for the Women of Seattle University Affinity Group to introduce our moderator.
Thanks, Tiffany, for that great introduction. My name's Tammy, and I graduated with an MPA from Seattle U in 2018. And as Tiffany said, I'm the education chair for the Women of Seattle U Alumni Association. And I want to introduce our moderator, Alex Park, and a little bit about Alex. He's a fourth-year political science major at Seattle U. He also serves as treasurer of the university's political science club, and he's interned with various political campaigns and nonprofits. So take it away, Alex.
Thank you, Tammy, for the introduction. To begin the event for this evening, I would like to introduce the 5 panelists that were willing to take some time out of their evening to have a discussion regarding women running for office. To start off, we have Representative Kim Schreier. Representative Schreier was first elected to the U.S. House of Representatives in 2018, representing Washington's 8th Congressional District. And prior to serving, she served her local community as a pediatrician for 17 years and is the only woman physician elected to Congress. We also have Senator Mona Das. Senator Das was elected to the Washington State Senate in 2018. Senator Das proudly represents the 47th Legislative District and serves as the vice chair of the Senate Housing, Affordability, and Stability Committee, and she also serves on multiple Senate committees as well. We also have Claudia Balducci. She is the chair for the King County Council, and she represents King County District 6 and was recently re-elected as chair for the council by her fellow council members. As a leader in transportation and affordable housing and a former public safety official, she believes that government should tackle the big issues that matter to people, notably housing, transportation, and the environment. We also have Natalie Reber. She is a Seattle U law graduate and a 20-year veteran of political and legislative campaigns. Her campaigns works include presidential candidates Al Gore and Hillary Clinton, Senator Maria Cantwell, and former state Supreme Court Justice Tom Chambers. She helped launch the Women's Vote Center at the DNC, which focuses on registering female voters as well as recruiting and electing female candidates across all levels of government. And finally, we have Jessica Lewis. She is a Spokane-based consultant and activist. She is a board member of Washington Conservation Voters and a founding member of Alliance for a Healthy Washington. Jessica has worked on campaigns at every level and in every congressional district in Washington state and has a heart for world concerns. And now to the main portion that we all been waiting for is the discussion regarding this topic. So I'd like to start this question with Representative Schreier. And for all the panelists, feel free to add to the question if you feel like you have something to say about it. Representative Schreier, what inspired you to run for office? And what was the hardest part about running?
Oh my, well, first of all, thank you for having me. It is wonderful to be here. I think that women supporting women is really, really important. What made me run? You know, I'm one of those women in 2018 who decided, all of us independently, but all kind of for the same reason, that we were in a world of hurt under a Trump administration. And so in reaction to that, women all across the country stepped up and we became a pink wave and ultimately flipped the House in 2018. And the things that got me revved up, I mean, one was just, I felt like everything was going in the wrong direction. Climate change, healthcare, civility, education, fairness. I saw scapegoating. I just felt like we needed to have brakes on a dangerous administration that has proved to be even more dangerous than many of us imagined. And I felt that as a pediatrician and a person with type 1 diabetes, I could really speak for the 8th District when it came to healthcare, preserving the Affordable Care Act, bringing down the cost of prescription drugs. And so I ran and worked really hard. Mona Das and I have known each other since the very beginning and won.
That's very insightful. Senator Das, do you have what inspired you to run for office as well?
Well, thanks, Alex. Thanks for the question, and hello to everyone. So wonderful to be here. So nice to see so many familiar faces. And I just want to share that I'm here tonight as myself. I want to get real with everyone, and I don't want to speak on behalf of my day job, but really want to just share intimately what it's like to run as a woman, especially as I'm the only woman of color on this panel. I can speak to you about that experience too. I think for me, I ran because I believe representation matters. And I look around and I didn't see myself represented in most official office, most government officials. And so I really wanted to make sure that voice was brought to the table. I have a fun story. I don't know about y'all, but I do my best thinking in the shower. And one day I was at my brother's and I got out of the shower and I said, I'm going to be a senator. And we both looked at each other and laughed like, well, that's preposterous because you see, I'm Indian. So half my family are doctors, the other half are engineers. But it was that idea that just kind of kept coming back to me over and over again. And, I put it on the shelf and sometimes I'd bring it down and dust it off. And I'll say, one day I was walking my dog, who has more energy than me, believe it or not, and doesn't like to stop. And when I came upon a sign, I literally came upon a sign and it said, Pramila J. Paul for State Senate. And I want you to know that my dog is pulling and wanting to go and barking, and I'm standing there crying my eyes out because for the first time, I could see, I knew by her name that she was not only a woman, but that she was an Indian woman. And so it was the first time I saw myself, you know, I knew like if she could do it, I could do it. And it was really a true inspiration for me. And then I'll fast forward to the end of the fun story is that I actually have her office in Olympia. So I actually am in her office. So just a sign that representation matters. And that's why I really agree to speak at any event where I can help maybe be that woman of color for someone in the audience that doesn't see themselves represented. So thanks for having me. It's a pleasure and honor to be here.
No problem. Thank you. And this question is for anyone to answer, really. It's just, what advice do you have for women who are thinking about running, but never have before? Or help a campaign, like manage a campaign?
I'd love to jump in on that one because I actually got to have that conversation with Mona. Mona is, I've known her for 10 years, one of my dearest friends. And when she sets her mind to something, she's going to do it. And I remember one of the first conversations I had with her was get plugged into a campaign. So we actually introduced her to Pramila and she just took off like a rocket since then. So the advice I'd give anyone looking to get involved is just get involved locally first. Either get involved with a political party, any sort of activism or advocacy and or work for a candidate, because there's nothing that will help you understand what you need to be successful to run yourself than once you actually see someone else and help someone else going through the process. Another thing, many of us on this panel have been through Emerge training. Find some sort of candidate training, get plugged in. Emerge works with women, so if anybody's interested, feel free to reach out. To Mona, myself, I believe also the Congresswoman was involved in that. And we can get you plugged in and that way you get the skills that you need. Because I think people don't always realize how much work and how much dedication is, and having that foundation is really important.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I just want to add, sorry, I can't see all the participants, don't want to jump on anybody, but I think a great way to build what's really important is not just your professional resume, but your political resume as well. A really great way to do that is by joining and getting appointed to boards and commissions. And council member can talk about this for King County in particular. There's 50 or 60 really important, really great policy commissions that make recommendations to the King County Council. And those are important leadership positions that you don't need a ton of experience to participate and to hold. Really what you need is a desire to participate and a little bit of experience in one area. Everything from the environment and urban planning to women and families, you name it, we have a commission for it. And so I can't encourage you all enough, especially in some of our smaller cities throughout King County. All of our cities have them as well. So something to really look into while you're building up your leadership resumes.
Great, thank you. Looks like Claudia was, or Chair.
Yeah, no, thank you. I just real briefly, I think the thing that I always tell people who come to me to ask about running, first of all, I thank you also for having me. I feel very old on this panel, to tell you the truth, because I first ran for office in the early 2000s. So I've been doing this for a little while. And if you get to see my picture, the hair has changed. It's, it's all, this is a good walk down memory lane. But one thing I always advise people is understand your why. Understand deeply what's motivating you to want to take this on, because it's important for a number of reasons. I think you heard the Congresswoman and Senator Doss talk really like persuasively and passionately about their why, what was motivating them. For one thing, that why you're going to want to return to during the depths of a campaign, because there will be depths. There will be days when you say to yourself, why did I do this again? And you need to have that touchstone in your own heart and soul that says, I'm doing this because I have a very important reason why, what matters to me. Also, it'll help you know where to start, because a lot of folks think, I'm going to run for Congress, or I'm going to run for, county council or whatever. There's lots of offices and lots of places where you can where you can do your good, where you can make a difference and build your brand to a higher office if that's where you're headed. But I've had people come to me and say, I want to be the mayor of Bellevue. And when they talk, they just light up about education. And Bellevue doesn't do education. The school district does education. And so I would say to them, it seems to me that what really motivates you is education for the youth. Have you thought about school board, or have you thought about the state house, because they do education as well? So I think that why part is a really important place to start and deeply understand. For me, oddly enough, my why was kind of an anti thing. I had gotten involved in a local land use issue here in my city, and I was stunned by NIMBYism. And for those of you probably all know, NIMBY is not in my backyard, which is this exclusionary reaction that people tend to have whenever something new is happening. Like, stop it, don't let those new people come here, stop the homeless from parking on our streets, if you're following this week's news in my district. And it's like, don't do that. And I didn't understand that at all. I think that we should have inclusive communities where we welcome and embrace people, and that's how communities live and thrive. So I ran because I thought there were far too many people saying no and not enough people saying yes. So understand your why. That's what I would add to this question. Thank you.
Thank you. Natalie,
I will echo exactly what Claudia said. Know your why, because you're going to want to return to that 100%. The other thing I will add is acknowledge every time you feel like you can't do it. What are you doing? The imposter syndrome, acknowledge it and then push it aside. So, because I think probably, I'm going to just guess that everybody has felt that if they have 2 X chromosomes. And so just acknowledge that it's there and then get up and do it, because you can, and you do need to, and you have something very important to say. And, win or lose, you will like yourself much better for having run the race.
It's a great insight. That's very insightful. Natalie, I have a question for you. In your opinion, how can people help empower women to take leadership positions in their communities?
Well, first, we can give them to them,
Yeah.
right? But more importantly, I think, first I want to give a shout out to Rutgers and the Center for American Women in Politics. And if you aren't familiar with it, go to their website. They've got all kinds of data. But one of the things that they did a few years ago was a study on women that run for office that found women in general need to be asked 7 or 8 times by various members of their community or family to step up to run for office, whereas men don't really need to be asked at all. They just take that impetus on themselves. So we need to get to the place where we have gender parity in that as well. But my advice is, if you have a friend or a mentor or someone in a community group that you are serving with who's an excellent leader, ask her if she has ever thought of running for office, because sometimes it's just planting that seed. Jessa spoke about her and Mona's relationship going back several years. I have a friend who's stepping up to run in Yakima for city council this year, who I have been telling every 2 years for at least 16 years that that is a position she should consider. It's not a high profile position. She may never run for anything beyond that. But like Claudia was talking about, her why is that city. She loves it. She knows everyone there. She'll be amazing. But it's the people asking her and telling her that that's the right job for her. And unfortunately, we still need to keep doing that. And we still need to be promoting those women. And for our progressive men that are in leadership roles, we need to ask them to make room for the women at the table. And that sometimes means asking them to step away from that table or take a back seat. And it is time to have those conversations.
Yes, I agree with that as well. Senator Das, I have a question for you. In your experience on the campaign trail, were there instances where you felt that your gender played a role in how your opponent or others treated during debates or at events? If so, how were you able to overcome it?
Every hour of every day. Yes, the answer is yes. I think people see women, especially someone like me who was not involved in the political process before, and they just don't think we can do it. And so you're constantly having to prove yourself and constantly having to, show that you can do the work. And campaigning really is getting out and talking to people, knocking on doors when we can knock on doors, showing up to events, doing the town halls and doing the events, and it's raising money. Those are really the two things. If you can do those two things, then you can win, but you have to out hustle. I mean, I had a hashtag for my campaign that was immigrant hustle, and everybody was like, you are literally everywhere. How are you in like 6 places at once? And this was before Zoom. And so I had to out hustle. My opponent was a well-liked Republican that had been there for a long time, and nobody thought he was beatable. And, I got out in the community, and people don't know who their state legislators are. They barely know their federal representatives. I mean, they know the president and vice president, and that's like an average person, I think. And so I just out hustled my opponent. I mean, I literally showed up to every event. I'm a really good fundraiser. That's sort of like my specialty. And so I just raised a lot of money, and I just out hustled. And I just had to continually validate myself by showing up and doing the work. And so, yeah, you constantly have to prove yourself. And I think that's what, especially old, but like white men get a pass. Like everyone just assumes they're going to do the work. And, I just out hustled my opponent, period.
Great, thank you. That's very insightful. Representative Schreier, I would like to ask the same question to you as well.
Sorry, there we go. And this question, mute myself. There we go. This question was about whether I felt like being like people treated me differently because I was a woman.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
I'll tell you an interesting story. When you're running for Congress, you don't do all of your own social media and email. I'm just gonna let you all know that in case you thought that I was doing all of that myself. And so sometimes people would write into the campaign criticizing something I had said. There's always some mansplaining going on. So people would write in critical of something I said in a forum or a policy position, whatever it was. And if my communications director, Katie, wrote back and signed it Katie, then there would be another pushback response. If somebody on my team wrote back as me and signed it Kim, there would be a pushback response. If Michael, my campaign manager, wrote, the issue was quiet. And it was very interesting because this was not a one-time phenomenon. It was very predictable that there was a lot of mansplaining to women, whether it was me or women on my staff. But if a man answered the question, that was the final word. So yeah, it's different, but we can still win, and women vote too.
Yes, that's true. Jessica Lewis, I would like to ask you a question, Jessica. How does individuals like yourself encourage younger generations to get more involved with the community and public service?
There was one forum in particular I remember that was at Eastern Washington University, where several of us candidates debated, and just by being real and transparent, that's something Mona actually, and everyone here has spoken about, like the why, the what's important to you, and when you share that genuinely, people connect with that. And I had several students come up to me afterwards and basically just ask them, okay, what's important to you? How can we get you plugged in? And anytime you find or identify young talent, especially from underrepresented communities, they need to hear that what they have to share is needed and valuable. And we keep hearing this encouragement and supporting women. And I think that's a big part of it. There's also, so being genuine, supporting other folks. The other thing is I think helping people realize that people who are in politics are just people. I think too often we put elected officials up on these pedestals, but once you actually get involved and get to meet them and have face-to-face meetings, especially if you're pushing for legislation, you realize these are just people, and you see all the human flaws and everything else. I think helping to demystify how things work, because politics is kind of opaque and it's confusing, and you know, most people don't even know who represents them, and it's just the government or that external thing. And if you help make it real and show people what place they can play, I think that'll help move things forward, because we're missing the engagement. And I think there's still more opportunity to have democracy being more democratic.
Great, thank you. Council Member Balducci, I'd like to ask you, how did your experience as the chair for the King County Council affect your viewpoint on how society can progress towards a more equitable society?
Yeah, that's a big question.
Yes.
So I've served as the chair now for about a year, and most of that year was during COVID time. So it's been I think, hopefully unique and hopefully not to be replicated experience. But I have to say, sitting just where I sit as an elected official, I think it's been brought up before, the importance of representation. We do a pretty good job at King County in bringing in voices from different communities, from communities of color, Black, Indigenous, people of color, LGBTQ, all kinds of folks to come and advise us. But if you look at the upper reaches of government, you don't see a lot of people representing different communities. You see a lot of white people like me. And so I think we need to do a number of things. We need to make sure that we are, as government, getting better at letting the community guide us. As I said, I've been doing this for a while, and when I started, I certainly had some things I cared about and was fighting for, but I also was much younger, and I had a lot of humility, maybe too much, where I didn't know exactly, like I listened a lot during my first year, and I didn't really push too hard for a lot of really dramatic change, and I had to grow into that space of feeling comfortable, fighting harder for dramatic change. But I think that one of the things that we all need to do is be willing, even when after you get a level of confidence, you know how the machine works, you know the complications of policy. I love that you said that, Jess, about, you know, policy is how policy turns into change on the ground can be very convoluted and hard to see. But when you get some confidence and some experience, you tend to feel like, I have a lot of value here. I bring a lot to the table. My work is very, very important. And I think we can allow that in leadership to turn into, therefore, the world cannot turn without me. and the world can, and it will someday turn without all of us, because we will, you know, move on one way or another. I think we owe it to ourselves to make sure that we are spending as much time as possible allowing the community to tell us about their experiences, to tell us what they need, not to question what they need so much as to try to find ways to better reflect it, represent it, provide for the community. And one of the, like, to make that a little more concrete, one of the tools that we've been using at King County government is what we're calling now an equity cabinet. So we did this for a parks levy, for our transit planning. And I'm sorry, she's just a lot less disruptive if she sits here. I apologize, y'all. But and now we're talking about using a similar approach for other policy. And that is where we bring in representatives of different parts of the community, especially underserved communities, especially disadvantaged people or people we normally don't hear their voices. And we give them a seat on one of those boards and commissions that we talked about earlier, and ask them to give us their advice. A deep study, long period of time, where we bring in you know, experts and people who help to educate the group, and then they tell us what their recommendations are, and frankly, then expect us to implement them. They don't expect us to spend a lot of time amending them. They expect us to do what the community is telling us they need to do. And this has helped us to be more responsive. So that's thing one, I think better modes and means of bringing in different voices and listening. But also, we need to do that thing where we hand off the baton. We need to help people get ready to run, to be, you know, get those experiences on campaigns, on boards and commissions, whatever it will take to help get somebody to be a real competitive candidate. And then I've made it my mission in life, when I leave the seats I'm in, that I try to hand it off to somebody who represents a community that's underrepresented. I've had some success at that. I've had some failure at that. But I think we all need to commit to do that, to let our seats be taken and held by folks who bring a completely different viewpoint and experience, because only then does the government really, truly, deeply feel and change the way it needs to.
Yes,
I hope I answered your question.
Yes, you did. Natalie, I'd like to ask you, in your view, how can others like myself, a person that identifies as a man, help empower women to take leadership positions in their communities?
There we go. Yeah, I think it's can be as simple as finding a great candidate and getting behind her. We have several on the call today, as well as being very fortunate that Washington State is one of those states in the top 10 of female representation. So this year is a local election year, which means there's municipal elections across the state for cities, counties, other smaller races. So it's a great way to get involved. Many of these races don't have the bandwidth or campaign funds to hire staff. So this in particular is a great year to find a candidate that you support and get behind them. In addition, I would say, here in Puget Sound, we have both Planned Parenthood Votes affiliate that's huge and very robust. We have a NARAL group that's also very robust that has a youth advocacy board. So, reproductive rights obviously impact everyone, but in particular, they impact women, and it is an issue that is very vital. So that's a great way for men to get involved in the political process by way of one particular really important issue, and can get connected to both campaigns and policy advocacy work that way. Same thing for other women's organizations. Now, Women's Political Caucus, who does accept men members, also to other great orgs.
Thank you. If any of the other panelists like to answer that as well, please feel free to do so.
I will echo what Natalie just said so perfectly. Getting involved in local elections, especially if you do want to run someday. As Justice shared the story earlier, she drugged me to Pramilla's office, and I got on the phones and started volunteering for Pramila. So that really is the best way. You can really see, is this something you're going to want to do or something you're not going to want to do? And that's really just a great way to get involved.
Great, thank you. Figuring out all the questions we have. I guess this is for the whole panelists again, as how important is knowing the people around you and the community will help you do the job that you're elected to, or help the campaign to elect someone else.
I'll jump on this one because this is something I'm actually really passionate about. I live in the eastern part of the state. Culture is a little different, and you'll often see the consultants or whoever, because most of the folks who are involved in politics on the left are in the Seattle region. So what they generate for the community can often sound tone deaf. So I found myself having to, even though I love my consultant, he was great, I had to constantly push back in the messaging that was being developed for my campaign for Senate. So it's like, that's just not how we speak out here. That's not what's important. There'll be pushback against this. And if you don't know your community and what makes them tick and what they care about, it's going to make it really hard to connect with them in a genuine way, because they need to know, because people don't vote against something, usually they vote for. So it's like, why should they care for you? Why should they vote for you? Why does it matter that you're involved? And if you're not in the community, you won't know, hey, they need a high school, or they're concerned about their water quality because of toxins being dumped from the military installation. So it's finding those things definitely, and having them connect with your why, and connecting with your voters or potential voters' why is what helps swing people over and sets you up for success.
Great, thank you. It looks like Representative Schreier was going to add something as well.
Thank you. In my role, I represent about 750,000 people. So there's no way I can know everybody, but I spend a ton of time trying. So I had, I think, 70 town halls in my first 2 years. Half of them were virtual because of COVID. Traveled, you probably all saw the ads, well over 10,000 miles, driving everywhere from, Wenatchee all the way to Eatonville and Mount Rainier. It's a very big district. And I think it's really important to do those things, but don't forget the one-on-ones, whether that's a one-on-one meeting with, in my case, farmers, business owners, you name it, but also the one-on-ones where you're just in a coffee shop and you tap somebody on the shoulder and ask what's going on in their lives and what they'd like to see from their representative. Sometimes that's the most representative population, rather than people who specifically seek out a town hall or specifically call a congressional office. Those are the people with very passionate views. For the average man or woman on the street, sometimes you got to just tap them on the shoulder walking down the street. So yeah, good luck.
Great, thank you.
I just
I
want
would like
say
to
one
add
quick
something
thing.
too.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Claudia.
Very, very quickly, I have to say what Jessa said was 100% right about knowing your community for your campaign. I have had problems with advice from Seattle-based consultants, and I'm just on the east side of Lake Washington. It's like your communities are different, and people hear things differently, and they value things differently, and what works in one place does not work every place. You have to know your community. So I thought that was great.
Great, thank you, Senator Das.
Yeah, I'll just add that I think one of the things that you really have to do is believe in yourself, because your community, some folks, like there were some folks that I thought would be there for me that disappeared, and some folks that just showed up that I didn't even know before. And so I think you really have to believe in yourself. And I had a mantra, which is just keep going. And I believe that, if you don't believe that you can do it, then other people aren't going to believe you can do it either. And so you have to build your own momentum, and you have to build your own sort of like vortex around you of just people seeing like, oh, she's moving, she's going. Okay, well, we better get on board because this is happening. And so for those of you who do want to run and you might not have maybe family support or, friend support, my friends all, other than Jessa, I mean, I didn't have any friends that were in politics or knew anything about it. So while they were supportive, they didn't really know how to support. And Jess and I were running at the same time. So we were all on the phone together, like every night at like 10 p.m. when everybody else went to bed, and we were still like stressing about our campaign. So I would say find other women that you trust that are running at the same time or can like be part of your experience. Some call that a kitchen cabinet, but for me, it was like, who's that 10 p.m., 11 p.m. friend that you could call to vent about whatever, and then believe in yourself. Because if you don't feel like you can do it, then other people are going to sense that. And so I really just encourage people to really believe in themselves and to keep going. Because I think somebody mentioned earlier, I can't remember if it was Claudia. I mean, there are hills and valleys when you run, and sometimes they are all in the same moment. Sometimes you're the highest of highs and the lowest of lows, literally within minutes of each other. So, just knowing that you can do it for yourselves. And as a few people mentioned their whys, write your why down and look at it every day, because you are going to need that to keep going, because campaigning is not for the faint of heart. But we're women. So, I feel like, we're used to that.
That's good to know. Natalie Reaper, I would like to ask one of the questions that's already been asked, but how does your experience in politics affect your viewpoint on society and how it can help progress how people view equitability?
I think that it has been a positive. I think that because of the time that I sort of got involved in politics, which was the very late 90s, we were really having a coming of consciousness around gender and women in politics, much in the same way we are right now around race and diversity in politics. And so for me, it was always aligned. I was the Women's Caucus chair for the Young Democrats of America. So it was always, my focus was on recruiting women candidates and turning out that coveted women's vote and helping to make that women's vote a coveted vote. So yeah, I think that it also in the last few years has taken those values and, you know, they have exploded because of some of the pendulum swinging the opposite direction in 2016. And, you know, some of our panelists talked about that being their why for getting involved as candidates. I think that's been a why for engaging people on a activism level to get involved both in campaigns and advocacy. So making sure that we capitalize and continue to capitalize on that energy and getting people involved is really important. One other thing I wanted to add that didn't get mentioned is that in Washington State, we have a position called precinct committee officer, and we have them for both Democrats and Republicans. For Democrats in King County, it's an elected position. Throughout parts of the state, it's also an appointed position. But I put in the chat a way for you to look up your district. That will also tell you your precinct. Every district is broken down into precincts, and that is an excellent way to enter into politics, especially in King County, because it is a campaign if you choose for it to be, and you run and you're on the ballot, and it engages you with your party and really gets you in at the grassroots level. So I encourage everybody to look into that.
Thank you. Representative Schreier, I was going to ask you, what advice do you have for women who are thinking of running but never have before?
I think I would go back to others' comments. And I think it was Claudia who said, just know your why and be true to yourself and be your authentic self. Don't let your advisors kind of shift your opinions or turn you into a robot or give you poll tested talking points. You know, people want you. They want to trust you, and they want the authentic you who's not going to change once you get to Olympia or Washington, D.C. or wherever. So remember your why, be your true authentic self, and then have that confidence at times when it's being shaken and you're feeling like you can't do it, that you really can. And you will push yourself and grow in ways you never imagined by putting yourself out there. And yeah, you'll be subject to criticism, and everybody will have an opinion, and they'll all want you to say something or do something different. Just remember your why, remember who you are, stick to your value system, and then go for it. You will like yourself better for having run the race.
Yes, and thank you. Council member Claudia, were you going to say something?
No, I just forgot to mute.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Zoom mistake.
Yes. It looks like that's all the questions we have for this panel at the moment. I would like to hand it over to Tammy to have a conclusion.
Thanks, Alex. I actually had another question that I wanted to ask, kind of to wrap things up, because I know Representative Schreier has another obligation at 7. But I wanted to ask, I guess we can start with you, Representative Schreier. Just a general question about, we've kind of talked about it already, but what advice for, future generations of women coming in would you have? Things that you've learned, experiences that you would like to pass on to them? Women that are thinking of running for office that, are finishing school, or I guess I don't want to say the younger generation, but the younger generation coming in?
So I think that what is most influential for young people, I think, is not necessarily hearing advice, but seeing role models. Like, we all stand on the shoulders of someone. And I even know that during my campaign, 4,000 volunteers. This was teamwork. It's not just one person on the ballot. Like, it's a whole movement. But many of the people who worked with me were my patients, who were teenagers or college students. And they probably didn't see themselves in this role, but they saw that I didn't see myself in this role either, and put myself out there. And so several of them that I know of then went to college, and they decided to double major, and they threw political science in there. And one ran for student body president at University of California, San Diego as a freshman, and won because she had seen how you run a political campaign, and she did it at her university. And so I think it's maybe not so much what I say, but I think for all of us, it's what we do, and how that, you never know where that influence will go, but people are watching. And when they see that we can do it, then they know they can do it.
Thank you. How about Council Member Balducci? Do you have any advice for the younger generation?
Yeah, one thing that's been mentioned, but I want to underscore it, is everybody's situation is different. What motivates you, how ready you are, whether running for office is the thing, or whether there's some other path that you can achieve your goals and achieve the change you want to see in the world. And so I really want to second the advice to find someone who will talk to you. And by the way, know several. I put my email in the chat. I am absolutely available for individual conversations. I've done this the entire time I've been elected. I offered to do this, and I've met with probably hundreds of people. Some of them have run, some have not, but because really just thinking through where you're at in your own life, what is it that really motivates you? What do you want to achieve? Are you ready to run? Sometimes people are not. Sometimes people are really not ready to run, and they get into races that they then quickly find they're not going to be successful. And that's hard. It's hard to find out early in a campaign. You got to feel like you're going to win. And sometimes it's clear that you're really going to struggle. And it didn't have to be that way. A little more preparation might have helped that person be prepared for a more competitive campaign. At the same time, for some other people might tell you, oh, you've never served on a border commission. I never served on a border commission. I ran right away because I felt like it was my opportunity, and I had thought it through with people who had been through campaigns and been elected. So I think it really does depend on the person, but I want to encourage people to reach out to folks who have been through this, run for office and won, run for office and lost, worked on campaigns, and talk through your own situation and try to take all that advice in, sift it through your own sense of self and your own sense of mission, and then make a decision what to do. It can never hurt to sort of talk things through. And I'm very willing, and I know that a lot of these women are very busy people, but I know that they will be willing in the time that they have to advise younger women coming up as well.
Thank you. Senator Doss.
Yeah, I think we've shared a lot of good tips. I really feel, believe in yourself, and if this is something that you keep coming back to, and this is something that won't go away for you, and it's nagging you for whatever reason, I say go for it. I mean, I will tell you, being at the table, one of my favorite phrases, especially when I was running, was if we're not at the table, we're on the menu. And I will tell you, I've been in those rooms where people of color, communities of color, BIPOC communities, women, lower income folks are definitely on the table. And if I wasn't there, or if me and some of my other colleagues weren't there, things get cut, and the view is not there. And so if you feel like you have a unique perspective, please share it. Your voice is needed and necessary. We still, we just reached 50% women in the Senate Democratic Caucus this year. And I think that's probably the first time ever. We now have 8 members of color, out of 49 people in the Senate, right? So it's run, people will be there to support you, and just remember that there will be, people are watching, right? And so, and like Kim mentioned, she did so great, so eloquently, it's like, she inspired this other young woman to then go and be student body president in her school as a freshman. I mean, that's because she learned, and that's because she had a great mentor. So do it, we're behind you.
Thank you. Kind of the same question for Natalie and Jessa, but I wanted to turn it a little more towards people that aren't necessarily interested in running for office and being kind of the front of the house, but are interested in, campaign work and kind of as I refer to it, the back of the house. So Natalie, I really appreciated you mentioning PCOs, because that is a great way to get started. I'm a PCO, so I liked that. So I guess kind of the same question, but for people that are interested in more campaign work and that kind of stuff.
Sure, I'll give a few, and then I know Jessa has some as well. Just like there are candidate political trainings, there are trainings for campaign managers, press secretaries, fundraisers, all of that. I'll say front of the house, because there is no candidate without those machines. But, Emily's List provides great overall trainings in all of those areas. So I would definitely look there, as well as the National Women's Political Caucus. And if those are areas you're interested in, same kind of thing, there's mentors in those areas. I think I spotted that we have a staff member of Senator Murray here, and her office, all of our congressional offices that are female members, both in the House and the Senate, have incredible female staff members as well, doing really great, incredible work. Down in Olympia, there are really important policy writers and attorneys that are on every single committee, and in the code revisor's office, actually writing that policy. So there are important positions both in policy and politics up and down the line where women can make really significant contributions. And I think, again, some of it is a mentorship question, getting yourself connected, or just figuring out, gosh, that sounds interesting. How did Jen Pataki become the new press secretary? What was her first job? Doing some of that research for maybe some of those jobs that look really interesting to you, and then doing the work backwards to find someone you can talk to about it.
Thanks, Natalie. I'm glad you mentioned the Emily's List classes. I've taken a few of those, even though I'm not really thinking of running for office, but they're very informative. So I would suggest, if anyone's interested, to check those out. Jessa, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I would definitely say a good campaign manager is worth their weight in gold. It is really hard to find staff, especially if you're running outside of basically the Puget Sound core. And when I ran, everyone got snapped up pretty quickly by the congressional race when Lisa Brown was running, just because there was so much excitement to have a viable candidate in an area that was seen as red. And then it was a big scramble. So just know that if you're looking at getting into it, and you do well with your first campaign, you can quickly move up the ladder. There's lots of opportunities there. But I think there's also a need for more investment in making sure that we're paying our staff properly and that we're giving them the benefits that they need, because that doesn't always happen, and especially in local races or lower level races. And I think that's part of why it's been harder to attract or retain good staff. So advocate for yourself. I know there's been a movement for staff to organize and get involved with labor unions so that they can get access to the benefits and the salary negotiations. There's definitely a career there. So if maybe you went to school in Seattle, but you live in Vancouver, Washington, or whatever, get plugged in, because you know that community, and having someone from maybe some of these more rural districts who can understand this is how you speak to people. Because as you know, Congresswoman Schreier said, like, she wasn't the one always responding, and having someone that understands how to respond, how to send those emails, what the locals are concerned about is so incredibly valuable, especially as we try to flip some of the more seats in areas like out here.
Thank you so much, Jessa. I just wanted to thank the panelists all at this time. I know we're going to spend a little bit of time. There's a couple of questions coming in from the audience. And I'd like to give Representative Schreier just the opportunity to answer this question first. I know she has to pop off here in just a minute or two. But a great question just came in. Since we're obviously all women, you all are women who are in the public service space, are serving. How do you balance raising a family and a political career? So just having a life outside of that. Representative Schreier, can you answer that question before you jump off?
Well, I don't know how much of an inspiration I'll be here, because I don't think I'm very well balanced. Let's see, I first will credit my incredible husband, because he has, he does well over 50%. And when I'm in Washington, D.C., he's a single parent. And so the whole family does this together. I'm very grateful to my son, who's now 12. He was 8 when I first ran, for being patient, and because it takes a lot of juggling and kind of juggling and shuffling. So I guess I would say you can do it. It helps to have a really great support system, whether that's your partner, your family, friends, because you can only do so much, and you can't be in 3 places at once, but you can do it. So find a support system.
Thank you. That's fantastic advice. Thank you so much. I'm going to pass it over to Natalie. What's your advice?
Well, I can't echo the support system loudly enough. That's something when I sit down with potential candidates or candidates already in a race, that's what I talk to them about, because even though you don't want to think about the potential of losing, you do need to consider it, and you want to have that strong support system in place in that event, and for all of those peaks and valleys that the candidates have talked about. But I think, that's probably, I can't really add much more to what Representative Schreier has said, and just want to say hi, and you're doing such a great job in DC, and thank you so much for everything that you do for us.
Thank you for saying that. I will keep working hard.
Thank you so much for being here tonight. I know you have a really busy schedule, but really we're just thrilled to have you and the rest of our panelists here. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Keep going. Talk amongst yourselves.
Okay.
Discussion. Thank you for having me.
Really of course.
Yeah, one other thing I wanted to say is find a partner and friends that are also interested in politics or policy areas that you are. On my very first date with my husband, he told me he had been a Barack Obama volunteer in North Carolina, and that was about it. That's all I needed to hear. So when you make your match, that find some other like-minded people so that they both can understand your desire to talk about it all the time, but also your need maybe to be gone, at 9 o'clock on a Thursday night for a meeting.
It sounds like having a really understanding partner and understanding support system is really instrumental. Councilwoman Balducci, I would love to ask you that question. How do you balance life and family with the work that you're doing?
It's a constant shift. I mean, life changes and the strategies change. I want to add one thing, and it echoes something Senator Doss already said. In addition, a key part of your support system has to be a phone a friend. You need one or more people who are willing to take your call at any hour of the day or night because you need to vent. Something has just happened and your brain is exhausted, or you've had one of those roller coaster days and you've suddenly got to think about how to respond to a press story that's just breaking. Something will happen and you will need a person, and it's not reasonable or fair to expect your family or whoever your partner is to absorb it all. It's a lot. And you need somebody who's going to just be that completely trusting. You can let your hair, I screwed up today, I'm losing this race. You need to be able to say all that you can never say in public, because in public, we're always winning. We're always winning and we're always fighting, right? And I just can't say enough. I have had such great support from friends and family members who took truly unreasonable calls at very unreasonable hours. So that's important. But then, when I first ran for office, I was in my 30s and I was a professional with a husband, and it was not that hard of an adjustment. It was a lot of hours, but I was used to working a lot of hours. He was used to me working a lot of hours. It was just working on something different, right? A few years later, we adopted our son, and then campaigns became a little harder because then there was the balancing of childcare and his job, my job. And so you adjust, you have to adjust. And I think this is probably something that women feel very acutely, that it always feels like you're shortchanging something. I'm not giving my best 100% somewhere at any given time. And I try to move it around so that I'm not always shortchanging my family. I'm not always shortchanging the campaign, because you've got to give it 100%. You owe it to the people who are supporting you and the things you stand for. And, when you're a local elected official, not a county council member, but a city council member, quite often it's a part-time job. And if you need to pay the rent or your mortgage, you have a job. So that balance, that shuffle that I think women are particularly called upon to do and particularly good at, it's real. But a campaign is finite. A campaign it's several months, but it's only several months. And then, so you just go full out. You got to do what you got to do. You're going to lose sleep. You're going to not do everything you think you should for yourself. By the way, I recommend highly taking time for self-care. You got to get out on walks that aren't just about campaigning. You got to eat right. You got to get some sleep. You will be tempted to lose sleep. First thing on the list, you got to get sleep. So, but you balance. There are times when you just are in an all-out sprint and then you relax a little more, get yourself ready again. Otherwise, you just get sick. I mean, I've seen so many candidates get sick, like really bad upper bronchial sick, because they are just not taking care of their body during campaigns. So that was a lot, but basically have somebody you can cry on, make sure to eat and get your sleep. All the things your mom told you to do, right? So do what your mom says for you.
Excellent advice, and I totally appreciate that. I was going to see, Jessa, what do you have thoughts about just what Claudia had mentioned? Just if
Absolutely.
You're kind of running. Okay.
Yeah, I wanted to piggyback off of what the council member was saying. I thought of the support network in these concentric circles. So you have your family, which is, let's make sure we get the dishes done. I'm a single mom when I ran. So making sure my kid got where she needed to go, would pull my family in to help with doorbelling. So there's kind of that aspect of it. Then there's what people are talking about, the people you can call at 10 or 2 a.m. sometimes, let's be honest, who you can cry and be completely honest with, because you can't always, when you're running, necessarily be fully honest with even your staff or with some of the people supporting you, because they may take one thing you say when you're feeling all of the emotions and take it and blow it out of proportion or misread it. And it's everything that's been said, like you have to appear like you're winning at all times, you're confident, you're good. So having a little bit of having those silos set up are really key when it comes to being successful. And I can't push that enough. And that's something that I didn't really understand, because, I'll joke around about Candidatezilla, having worked on campaigns for a long time, you see candidates and, they get a little stressed out and give them a hard time. But once I was actually in the shoes doing it myself, I'm like, okay, I have a lot more grace and understanding for what the candidate is going through. And so all of that, but I just wanted to amplify and put a exclamation point on that one.
No, thank you. I really appreciate that. Senator Doss or Natalie, anything you wanted to add about self-care, about having the right support system, anything else?
Yeah, I'll just say 3 words. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Natalie. Naked Lady Spa. That was like my key to my success. And it's sadly, it's like not,
Yes.
actually I heard it was open again, but self-care, 2 cheers for Claudia for bringing this up. This is 100% what you need to do. You've got to take time out for yourself. And this isn't for just people who are running, ladies. This is for every single person that's out there doing whatever dream that you're chasing right now. Taking that time out for self-care, especially now that we're all stuck at home. It's, it looks like something different for everyone. For some people, it's binge watching their favorite show. For others, it's taking a walk. For others, it's like eating a bowl of popcorn. Whatever it is, just take the time to do it. Because if I always use that analogy of the airplane. Like if you don't give the oxygen to yourself first, you cannot help others. And as Claudia mentioned, I mean, when you get sick, you're not helping anybody. And so you really do have to take care of yourself first and make that a priority, even if you have to put it on your calendar. So I think that is something that I really want to echo. Taking care of yourself is the most important thing. And it's hard to schedule it in, but you'll get sick and then then your body says, see, now you're going to stay home.
Yeah, I think I always like to use the phrase that Coco Chanel used to say before she would leave the house, she would remove one accessory. And if you look at your week and all of the meetings and appearances that you're trying to cram in, just remove one of those, because chances are you're going to catch up with that meeting the next week or that group the next month, or they're not going to fit you into their agenda anyway. And so one of those meetings can probably fall off of your calendar. So it is really a prioritization, and making sure one of those priorities is, either the spa, or for me, it's the soccer field. Not right now, unfortunately, but any of those activities. But, give yourself permission to not attend something.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic advice. Probably hard to do for some people, but still really good advice nonetheless. Thank you so much. Couple other questions. This one, I'm really eager to hear what you all have to say. So question here, where could some of the folks on this call look for positions to help local candidates? That's a very good question. So where can some of the folks go on this call who want to help local candidates? Where can they go to look for positions? I'm going to open up to anyone who may have some good advice on where they can go.
Yeah, I would start looking on your individual city websites for which city members are up this year. So if you're in Seattle, there are 2 citywide positions up. If you're in one of King County cities, either all of the seats or some of the seats, like Bellevue, are up. There are some county council positions that are up. And I would say utilizing social media, if you don't already have a connection to one of those campaigns, is probably a good way to get connected. Claudia has already been very helpful in saying that she may be willing to help connect some people. And then there are, at the state level anyway, we have both our House Democratic Campaign Committee and our Senate Democratic Campaign Committee. And that would be more looking at later this year or early next year for all the state legislative seats that are going to be open. But they do typically a hiring fair or something to collect resumes and help connect people to campaigns.
I would add to that, you can go find campaigns pretty easily, and as the season heats up, this is a local election year. It's an odd numbered year, so a lot of city council, county councils, 5 of our positions are up for election this year, not mine, but others. And However, there are also great groups that are organized specifically to support campaigns. So if what you really care about is the environment, Washington Conservation Voters is going to be out grabbing volunteers to go support, and they will have already vetted the candidates, so you know that the ones they support are really very strong advocates for what you care about. There's Planned Parenthood Votes. There's, I'm going to forget them all, but there's a lot of those kinds of groups that if you can get connected, Women's Political Caucus that advances women in politics, and I think the other candidates will probably have a longer list. I'm blanking, but that's a great way to get involved, like for a day. If you want to go do, today I want to go doorbelling and see what that's like, you can volunteer for a day. If you find a candidate you really feel strongly about supporting, or if you know you're going to run and you want to get more of the full meal experience, then look and see who's running in one of your local jurisdictions. Reach out to their campaign. Their website will be on the filing page on the Public Disclosure Commission website. You'll be able to find that. Reach out to them through their campaign manager or even the candidate themselves and say, I want to volunteer. We all live and die by super volunteers. There's always a lot of people who come and go in a campaign. We'll do this or we'll do that. But man, if I could clone my small number of people who did everything, like whatever we needed, they were there. They were making phone calls. They were knocking on doors. They would help arrange fundraisers, do anything, and stayed throughout the whole campaign. That person's ready to run a campaign on their own because they've seen how the entire machine works. So lots of different ways to get involved in it at whatever level you want to try to have an experience. You can really scale it from I'm just dipping my toe into I'm all the way in, I'm fighting for this person. Also, there will be initiatives. I'm sorry, there will also be initiatives. Look for like Best Starts for Kids levy is up this year. There will be some others. So there may be things. I think the library might be going out this year. There will be things like that available as well.
Thank you so much. Just the breadth and really the depth of how people can get involved. And I just love that you offered just either one-day opportunities or long-term opportunities. It's extremely helpful. Thank you so much. It looks like we have one final question. I'm actually really interested to hear what you all, how you're all going to respond. And I say that because you're all on this panel. You're all really comfortable in speaking about your own personal experiences. Can someone who's sensitive get into politics?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think, in fact, it might be a requirement because it doesn't necessarily, that's not necessarily a bad thing. And, you know, I'm very sensitive to the needs of my community, for example. I'm very sensitive to my neighbors who are elderly and couldn't get around in the snow. So, yeah, I think that as opposed to it being a negative, it's a requirement. That said, I think for candidates, elected officials, and anyone that is aligned, you know, in the public eye, whether they're a public official or not, a thick skin is a requirement. And unfortunately, we're in a time where it has become okay and almost required to be as nasty as possible. So I hope that people will start to dial that back. But whether that environment remains or it improves, a thick skin is really necessary. You have to have a strong and healthy enough ego to put your name on that ballot. Just try to not let that ego get blown way out of proportion once you get elected.
Thank you.
Can I say that I think you can grow a skin though. You can grow your whatever skin you were blessed with, however thick it is. It can grow thicker, and it doesn't have to be through trauma that it grows thicker. I mean, I've been at this for a long time, and I remember very clearly early years giving speeches and being terrified. I mean, terrified. There's some social science that suggests this is the #1 fear that Americans carry around. Social fear is the fear of public speaking. I thought the idea that someone would criticize me in public, that I would just start crying and I would be humiliated. I mean, I had nightmares about it. It was not something that came easily. I learned to duck paddle, which is where you glide gracefully across the top of the water, but underneath this is happening, right? And so you can put yourself in positions to get experience, putting yourself out there and realize you're not going to crumble. you're not going to break down in tears. You can handle it if somebody challenges you, and you learn strategies and you practice those strategies. So my bigger problem, aside from feeling the nervousness and the self-consciousness, was I have a temper. And so if somebody, and there's video of this, you can find it, you know, if you really care to, you could Google Bellevue City Council falls into chaos, and you will find a video of me having a screaming match with one of my fellow Bellevue City Council members, because he surprised me and he criticized me in front of everybody. And I reacted emotionally, which I'm not proud of. I'm glad I fought him off because he was bullshit, excuse me, what he did, but I was not proud that I lost my temper. So, but you can join like speech clubs, right? People swear by Toastmasters. I've never done it myself, but it's an opportunity to practice public speaking. You can join debate clubs. You can do things where you get yourself in the practice of taking on a critical argument and putting out what you want to put out. And you'll find it's like magic. The more you do it, the more your confidence grows, and the more you're able to keep that duck paddle under the water. And I just think a lot of people, especially women, probably underestimate how strong their skin really is. And I wouldn't want you to not step into something because you think, oh, I just couldn't take it. I think I come across as a confident person. It's not always how I feel, but yet I have learned to project that. And I think everybody who does this kind of work has learned to project that. And so you can too.
Thank you so much. Senator Dawes.
You know, yeah, there's definitely the thick skin part, and I'm glad you all brought that up. What I'll talk about is the other end. I get emotional. You know, I was in a meeting the other day with a woman, and I'll probably get emotional again. You know, I was meeting with healthcare workers or home healthcare workers, SEIU, one of the SEIUs. And this woman, I mean, it was just so emotional, right? Like, we know all these healthcare workers are exhausted and lowly paid, and mostly communities of color and mostly immigrants. We know that. But then I met one. It was over Zoom, and she had a translator. You know, we had a translator service available for her. And she told this story where she is like driving an hour and a half each way to work, and she can't drive, so her family member has to drive her. And you know, they're all living together. Anyway, she touched my heart so deeply, I was sobbing. And then she was sobbing. And I told the translator, please tell her that, you know, please tell her that she just literally touched my heart. And then she's crying and I'm crying. And then I literally had, you know, when you're in the legislature, your meetings are 15 minutes long. So I had 2 15-minute meetings right afterwards, back to back. And I cried through both of those because it was, you know, it's hard to compose yourself after you've experienced something like that. So I say, for those of you who are sensitive, that is a strength. And for you to be able to, I mean, that woman, she will probably never forget that she made a legislator cry telling her story. And I will never forget her story. And it was one of those things where I feel like showing your emotion as a legislator is a good thing. I mean, I have definitely cried in floor speeches where I have bared my soul. We had somebody that cried yesterday giving a floor speech. So, you know, and I think too, as for someone who's seen as a leader, if you can show that side of you too, then others feel comfortable showing that side too. I think politicians have always, you know, like, we all think that all politicians are buttoned up. Well, listen, when people close their eyes and they think politician, they don't think Mona Das, right? They don't think this little tiny Indian woman from, you know, immigrant Indian woman. They don't think that. And so I'm hoping to break other barriers where we can show our sensitive side and show our humility and show our empathy and show that we care. When these people have their 15 minutes with their legislator and they are telling you what it's like to live in their skin, and if you sit there and you're completely stoic, I can't do it. I can't do it. And so I don't. Well, first of all, I can't not, you know, if I'm emotional, it's going to come out. So I think there is definitely space in politics for your sensitive side and your humility and your humanity and your empathy. And I think it makes you a better legislator. or a better elected official or a better leader, right?
Mm.
And I also want to just real quick say, we are changing just the fact that we're having a panel like this shows that we are changing things, because who knows who's on this call right now who is being inspired by something that Kim said, or Claudia said, or Natalie, or Jessa, or myself, right? Like something, hopefully there was a nugget for you to take on to live your dream, whatever it is. And we are changing leadership. And that to me is why representation matters so much. And I'm here for it. We can't wait to see what you do next.
Thank you. Ooh, chills. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So everyone, the message here is sensitivity is a strength. Please note, every panelist has said that so far. Sensitivity is a strength. Jessa, did you want to respond to this question?
Sensitivity is a strength. For those of you who don't know my story, I actually grew up an evangelical Republican, and ended up homeless with a kid, and that woke me up. And it was a very kind of a brutal, here's what real life is like. And this whole notion of bootstraps and you're on your own. I think the lack of sensitivity in politics is how we've gotten here. It's how we have kids in cages. It's how we have California and Texas without power when they need it the most. It's why we're seeing the levels of suffering we're seeing. It's why we're battling to get people to wear a mask and get a handle on a pandemic. And I know it's been said by everyone here that, like, yes, you need thick skin, but sensitivity is a strength. But you think about it, like your heart is sensitive, but it's also your strongest muscle, in your body. And there's strength there and that tenderness. And that's connected to your why, and that's connected to why you're running, and it's how you get elected. And when I knocked close to 10,000 doors during my Senate race, and every single day I would have someone break down in tears on the doorstep, sharing their story with me. Like, no one's ever come to my door before. And even after, closely losing my race, people still will reach out to me on social media or come up to me on the street saying, thank you for being vulnerable and sharing. And here's my story, or here's that connection. So I think we need more of that, and we need more humanity and more care for one another. And yeah.
Wow, thank you. Thank you so much. All right, and looking at our chat, it looks like that was the final question. I did want to let the folks know that Bianca is going to be sending out all the wonderful resources that our panelists have included, and a lot of our audience members have included. So there will be an email going out. If you did not catch it in the chat, a lot of great recommendations. And I just want to say a final thank you to our panel here tonight. Thank you all so much, Senator Mona Das, Natalie Reber, Jessa Lewis, and Council Chair Claudia Balducci. Thank you all so very much for taking your Thursday evening and being real and honest with us about women running for office. If the rest of the folks are like me, I am leaving like feeling chilly in a good way and inspired and empowered. And I've never wanted to go knock on anyone's door more so than I want to do now. And I think that's why we're doing this and we're here. So thank you all very much. And just one final shout out for the women of SU. Just want to let you know, you can still get connected with us. We have a Facebook, we have a website, a LinkedIn, and an email. So please let us know for all the alumna here and for those in your communities. We want to get connected with you and continue to provide valuable panels like this with the wonderful women we've had tonight. So please reach out to us. We'd love to get connected. All right, thank you so much, everyone. Have a great evening and have a great rest of your weekend. Take care.